Hi, welcome to Astrology for GAN Traders. My name is Olga Morales. Now this video, so I'm going to keep it short, is just an update on my previous ones, because if you recall, I alluded you to some forthcoming dates that in the mid-season, in mid-eclipse season, that would be hot, dangerous and volatile, because Mars, the planet of war and aggression, would be triggering, first of all, the lunar eclipse degree on the 12th, and then on the 17th there was going to be the moon wobble time. So let's have a look at what happened. I mean, if you haven't been watching the news, you know, of course, all the aggressive and volatile images we've seen happening in the world. And first of all, when Mars was actually conjunct the lunar eclipse degree on the 12th of August, we saw that in Charlottesville in Virginia, we saw the riots. It was so extreme and very scary to see this sort of protest in this day and age. And then just overnight, when the Sun was conjunct the North Node on the 17th of August, in Barcelona we've had this horrendous terrorist attacks in Barcelona. So with people being run down in a van, I mean, it's just, you know, these images are just so Mars-like. Now, Mars is not always connected with eclipses, but he's often the trigger that stirs the eclipse up. So, and also today, overnight, the S&P 500 is down 38 points, and you can see that's in between the lunar and solar eclipse. It's very unstable time on many levels. So what happens is, if you've probably heard me speak about this before, if you've come to my workshops or have my courses, is that there around eclipses is something called a moon wobble, and you can see it on this graph where I've plotted the North Node, the Lunar Node, and you can see around eclipses, this is where the eclipses are in August and we had them in February, is that its actual movement becomes very erratic at that time, showing how the actual movement of the moon is actually quite erratic. There's a lot of pull also on our Earth at that time, so strange things happen. And what he found, that during the moon wobble periods, time and space are unstable. So his name was Carl Payne Toby, and his research showed those sort of things: more increased conditions for natural disasters, floods, bizarre weather patterns, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions and tornadoes, plane crashes, boat, train or car accidents, explosions, fires, riots and mass murder, increased accidents and violence, political and personal upheavals. Now, the fact that Mars is included in this moon wobble period, it just accentuates everything. It really puts fuel to the fire. Okay, so often eclipses are connected with earthquakes, okay, and in particular I think this one, because of Mars involved, becomes more volatile. I believe there will be a large earthquake possible. Now, the fact that Mars and Mercury will be conjunct the solar eclipse degree on the 3rd or the 4th, depending where you are on the Earth, that could be a trigger for a very large earthquake. If you recall from my previous video, I had a solar map, a geodetic solar map, talking about the eclipse going through Leo, and Leo is in this region here. Okay, remember that North Korea and Guam is right under here. It's sort of hidden, and this area could be obviously triggered. Okay, but the other thing is we got to look at where Mars is also rising over places and also setting over places. Okay, now what I've done here, I've actually put the Paran lines in it. So the Mars Mercury Paran lines and is actually at 23 north and also 23 south. So this line here, in terms of latitude, could be an area where there could be more earthquake activity, okay, at that point, and also where it intersects with the actual Mars and Mercury going over, okay. And this is another area here in Saudi Arabia, Iran, Okay, now these are just possibilities. Okay, and in the south we can see where there's in the sea, obviously in Australia here, we might get really bizarre weather again on this coast. Alright, not necessarily earthquakes, but it can become. We've had quite a bit of activity in recent times in that area, and also in probably in the Atlantic Ocean or off the coast here. So the other thing I wanted to point out is that Donald Trump, who is being eclipsed at the moment, is also going to be triggered on the 20th of August in a couple of days. Saturn will be exactly conjunct his natal moon and opposite his sun. That's if we're using the 1054 chart. Now, that, again, remembering that he was born on a lunar eclipse, that is quite debilitating to his body, his emotions, and also at the same time, or a week later, on the 31st, he has his Mars return. So his Mars is also going to be activated at the same time that Saturn is on his moon and node. Okay, so these two planets are called the malefics. They're hard, it's destructive energies, having at the same time, plus the eclipse that will trigger him, his ascendant and Mars. So, you know, he's under really a lot of pressure. And to me, the Mars Saturn is called the death, destruction, separation of who he is. So, be interesting to see how he comes through this, because it's really. And the other thing is, not only that, if we think about the 3rd or 4th of September, Mars will be at this degree again as well, where the eclipse was, because his Mars is only at 26 of Leo, and remember it will hit his ascendant and the eclipse degree later on, so on the 3rd or 4th of September. So still he's under a lot of pressure, so it will be interesting to see how he survives through this couple more weeks. Okay, so thank you for listening. My website is Astrology for GAN Traders. I've got courses, and I'll be doing a workshop in October in Australia. That's 2017. Thank you for listening.